everyone, welcome to the shop. Welcome to the live stream. On this episode, I'm going to be working on my Fallout 4 Assaultron costume, and I've got a lot of work to do. I've got to get this costume done in a few weeks. So I've gotten a jump start and started doing the foam fabrication of the torso. You saw in the last stream I did all the templating for it, and that made it actually go pretty fast. It took me about 2 days to do all the work I'm about to show you. And let's just get started because I got a lot left to do. The first thing I did was make the back plate, and I just followed along with a template for the top two pieces. This bottom piece I added later, like I thought I was going to have to, where I didn't even use this template. After I got this whole form done, I traced a new template and stuck in this piece here. If you look on the back, you can see that I did a lot of kind of undercuts where I cut V's out of the foam, and then I either added material with hot glue and a little foam wedge, or I glued the trench together. And what that ends up doing is creating these subtle variations in the angles of the foam. This piece here, I just cut a little circle thing all the way through, and it ended up being a little jagged. I just cleaned it up on the rotary tool with a sanding drum. I pushed it all the way through and just hot glued it in place. And this curve here is another one where I cut a trench into the foam, so kind of angled my blade, cut not all the way through at one angle, and then did the same angle on the other side, tore out a little, it ends up looking like a little triangle wedge of foam, and then you can just glue that together. For a lot of these I used contact cement, but you could use super glue or hot glue. Hot glue is especially handy if you want to add material like I did here, because it bulks up the form. You just want to remember, if you use hot glue, you don't want to heat form the areas again that have the hot glue, or else it'll just start coming apart. These little nuts here, I cheated and used one of the tools that we have at our disposal. I used a laser cutter. This is a leftover foam. This is 6mm foam, and I cut out a couple extras. I have another size of these I need. I just cut them out with, I think it was like 20% power on our laser cutter, and then did like 1% power for the engraving area here. And anything that you cut on the laser, you want to smooth out the edges because they're pretty sharp. So I took a grinding bit and just smoothed over these sides so they don't look as 2D. If you get your hands on a laser cutter and start cutting out foam, make sure it's really well ventilated. We have a ventilation system that Bill got with his laser cutter that vents the fumes outside. Also, when I use it, I have the door open, which is right next to the laser, which vents outside. So I don't smell the foam at all, but you are vaporizing material and you don't want to breathe that in at all. If you're using a Makerspaces laser, make sure that it is well ventilated before you throw foam in there, because you don't want to breathe that stuff. The front piece, I did the same process where I took the templates I made on the last live stream, so this piece, and then I flipped the templates over and did the other side, glued them together the best I could, tried to get the cleanest seam I possibly could. This form I retraced. Retraced it on the newspaper to be the kind of the final size, and then I put this down on our grid and took a picture of it looking straight down, and I took that picture and put it into Inkscape, which is just a vector drawing program, and I just drew around the edge. I drew the circle. It has these two like little line things, like vents or whatever. So I also laser cut this, and I got footage of me laser cutting that, so I'll put that in the video later. These two trenches, I glued some 3mm foam on the back of them. The circle piece that was cut out from the laser, I beveled the edge on the rotary tool with a sanding drum to kind of give it a little bit of a tapered look. This piece here is a strip of foam that I beveled on the rotary tool, just sanded it down with a sanding drum. And then I used, I don't even know what it is, it's some kind of grinding bit. It looks like a thick disc. It's like a stone grinding bit. And that's something that Bill talks about in his foam armor book, is you can use these on the rotary tool to create these trenches. So that's how I did that. I just kind of like braced my hand as best I could and just ran it along along the seam there. And with this guy, the center is the sanding bit that I usually use with the drum kind of, it's like pushed up a little bit to have like a little bit of a gap there. And while that's running on the rotary tool, you just touch it to the foam. You want to practice, because it's kind of hard to get right. And you just kind of dig it in there to get that trench. But I need it to be a little bigger than that, so I used my old PVC pipe that I had sharpened to cut out rivet pieces from the foam. I just heated up the foam and just pressed that in and twisted it to get that kind of groove thing going on there. I did all of this before gluing the piece onto the circles because it was way easier to work with when this was separate. This bottom piece was also cut from the template, and I just mirrored the template and kept it all one piece of foam. I've been spoiled. I've been using a TNT Cosplay foam that comes in giant rolls, so I can fit all this on the giant roll and not have to cut it up. So that was nice. This chest piece has a circle kind of vent thing that I still have to make, so I'm going to trace out the template for that and then transfer it to foam and then probably heat form it into shape. It has a pretty severe curve thing going on right here. I have my template and it needs to be a little wider, I think. It no longer quite fits the foam anymore, so I'm going to remake this guy. And when I need a template to be symmetrical, I'll just fold it in half. And if you need it to match two directions, fold it in half and then fold it in half again, kind of like a snowflake. Cut out just a quarter of it, and then when you open it, it all matches. This one is not supposed to be the same up and down, so I'm only going to mirror it in one direction. It kind of has a slight curve here, and then this part all gets bent underneath, and it has some vents going on across it. So I'm going to trace this original pattern and then make it a little wider and probably a little longer, because when I curve it into more of a three-dimensional shape, it'll get a lot shorter. Alright, so I got my curved bit. Now that I've got this shape figured out and heat formed, I'm going to glue it in place. Probably going to use contact cement, so we'll see how that goes. Alright, so while that's drying, I'm going to plan out the next thing I'm going to make. There are these two circles that go on this lower rib cage part. I could use my PVC pipe. Do the same thing that I did for this guy. Oh, I touched part of the barge. I got this piece glued in place and I added the circle bits. I have this little shape to add, so I might try and trace it out. Yeah, I think I'm going to trace this out on some paper, kind of lay it down, see how it looks, and figure out how I'm going to fabricate that. I don't have to glue it down right away, so I can just make it separately and place it and see how I feel. I'm going to hold this down and trace where I want it to go and then add contact cement to both sides. There's supposed to be like more of a taper here, and I just have a flat piece, so I might do something like this to this guy. I'm going to start with the middle, press it together, and then kind of work my way to either side. So it just adds a little bit of depth there instead of having it be a flat piece. I might go back later and taper this more with the sanding drum. Thanks for checking out the live stream. I got just about all the detail bits I need on the front of this armor, and I got the form all figured out. The back still needs, it has like a little antenna bit on it, so I'll have to add that later. I'm waiting for the antenna in the mail, so once I get that, I'll be able to figure that piece out. These guys are just about ready to get some latex put on them. I'll go over the forms again to make sure I didn't miss any little nuts or bolts or greebly bits, but this part I'm really happy with. It kind of looks like a face. I don't think this is how I'm supposed to wear this, but I like it. Yeah. If this is the first video you've checked out of my Assaultron build, you'll want to go back and watch the rest of them. I've started a playlist that'll be linked down below. I'll also have more of these videos of the rest of the costume build. I still have to make the arms, the head, and do the undersuit. So there's at least 3 more videos in the works, probably more. And thank you for checking them out. And thank you for those of you that are patrons that support us on patreon.com/punishprops. And thank you to those of you who are subscribed on Twitch TV/punishprops. We love your support. That's why we're able to do these extra videos, is because of you guys wanting them. And you show that you want them by giving us a little bit of money, and that's great. We can justify the time it takes to edit all of these extra videos together for your eyeballs later. I'll see you guys on the next Prop Live!